how do you become so sought after and established in an industry, in a community, in a place that may be perceived as saturated? And I think that this is where we talk about the idea of value. We really want to make sure that we're able to deliver on a problem set repetitively, consistently. All that to say, there's a specific framework that we suggest most trainers need to be able to leverage as they're working with new clients. Number one, you have to conduct the relevant assessments. You have to know what to measure, when to measure it, and how often to remeasure it. You're doing that so that way when you design the program, which is the second pillar here, if you can't design a program, you're gonna be grabbing at random things all the time. Welcome back to Beyond the Pump, where we talk about the business of fitness and nutrition coaching. On today's episode, we are talking about how not to fall behind in 2025. There are 100,000 plus personal trainers currently just in the United States alone, not even talking about the global industry. And we need to figure out, and we're hoping that today's episode will start to shed some light as people are looking forward ahead to the next year on how to stand out amongst the competition and surprise business building, marketing, sales, the stuff that we've talked about and Steve has done such a phenomenal job with explaining is an absolutely quintessential part, a foundational part of that process. However, that's actually not the only thing that's associated with standing out. It's self-promotion, branding, marketing, yes, but there's also an element of the hard and soft skills of actually coaching. So those are the things that we're going to delve into a little bit in today. And just as a foreshadowing, we do have an event if you found today interesting and you want to learn how to more effectively put this into your own business. We're hosting an event in Dallas, Texas at Self-Made Training Facility. It's going to be a fitness coaching psychology. And if you guys are super nice, we might even be able to convince our resident business expert how to build a workshop around making sure you guys are set up for your next year. If you don't go in with a plan, you're basically planning to fail. So we want to make sure that you guys are all set up and equipped, ready to rock for 2025, because it's going to be a great year. I think that there's going to be a lot of things that really shift positively from an economic perspective, really allowing people to start to have a little more discretionary spending as we start to pull ourselves out of this recession. So all that to say, Steve, if we're talking about successful personal trainers today, give us the top word that pops in your head around being a successful personal trainer with your obviously multiple fitness location businesses and your experience with that. Is there something that jumps to mind?
Financially independent while still having a life. I know you said top word, but I think for trainers, there's this I have to work all day, every day, 5 in the morning, 9 at night type mentality. I don't get to really take many vacations, and I'm still struggling to put gasoline in my car at some point in time. So,
Mm-hmm.
solving those to me would be a successful trainer, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you bring up such a great point in the nature of like time freedom, which was a big thing at the last company I worked at, was that people would oftentimes shift away from or really get interested in business when they got so good at coaching that eventually they were in such high demand that they couldn't help but be busy all the time. So then the idea came into, well, how do we turn around and how do we actually make the most use of our time? And that's where you do have to have a sense of business savvy, but the question is, how do you get to that point? How do you become so sought after and established in an industry, in a community, in a place that may be perceived as saturated, and everyone left and right is trying to sell you something online? And I think that this is where we talk about the idea of value. We really want to make sure that we're able to deliver on a problem set repetitively, consistently, and as efficiently as possible, because effectively what people are paying for is a decreased time cost or a decreased risk of failure. And that's what I would attribute most personal training to is you get that person from point A to point B with the least amount of mishaps because you're still going to make some mistakes, right? But you get them there as fast as possible given the time, resources, and constraints that that person's dealing with, which is why a consultation is so important because you have to understand what's the project that we're building here, what are all the obstacles that might be getting in the way, and how can we effectively plan to solve those things based upon past behavior and what we have available from a structure perspective, meaning you have to have a plan. And I see too many personal trainers right now getting out on the fitness floor and they're just raw dogging it. They're like, yeah, what do you want to do? What do you want to work on? You're like, oh my God, what do you mean? What are you going to work on?
Uh, He's the
That's my
nicest guy, but the trainer at my gym, he always works out this one woman every morning around 6 a.m. when I'm there, and he hands her weights, and inevitably it's either too heavy or too light on the same exercise I saw him do last week, not on the same day, but it's like, come on, man. Like, you can't remember that she lifted 15 pounds last time?
yes.
Drives me nuts. Because now you're wasting time as well
Yes.
for this client who's paying to speed up time, but you're wasting time.
Speed it up.
Anyways,
And that's,
sorry.
yeah, no, and I
Sorry.
think that you're highlighting something that's such a critical thing that we cover in our fitness workshop. Again, if you haven't registered for that, you're missing out. And if you don't know what a minimum effective dose is, you need to check it out. Right. But it's this absolutely imperative thing that people in exercise, even medicine, right? It's a universal thing amongst all the allied health professionals. It's what's the least that you have to do to get the result or make progress that's meaningful, right? If you had to do 1,000 squats, or if you did 1,000 squats when you only needed to do 100, that's like overpaying your cell phone bill. It's $100 by paying $1,000. Like, why would you do that? You would then lose the ability, and it's like it doesn't roll over either. You're just now out $900, and
Feels
so
like doing
that's
7 sets of hamstring curls versus four. Like,
Brad Schoenfeld in the hypertrophy researcher said, "Listen, 8 to 20 sets, sir." No, I'm kidding. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of shit that's coming out right now that we actually have. It's very contrary, and you can actually grow muscle by lifting light weights for high volume. It seems like it actually comes down to the novelty, but no rabbit trails. No rabbit trails today, guys. There's so many rabbit trails, but again, workshop come. But minimum effective dose, right? And so when we talk about getting from point A to point B, the idea is that you could lose 20 pounds in a week. I promise you, I guarantee everyone could. Is it going to be the thing that helps you keep that 20 pounds off so you don't have to continuously engage in the cycle of loss, regain, loss, regain, loss, regain, which, by the way, every time you lose weight and you rapidly regain it without any clear reverse dieting protocols or without any kind of consistent backing out of that protocol, you actually increase your fat cell count, right? So you actually make yourself a little bit fatter and you lose lean body mass. And so the faster you lose weight, the more muscle tissue you lose. But all that to say, you need to be able to have a long-term plan in place to go from point A to point B. You should be able to populate that with milestones, and you need to be able to do that in a way that's contextually enriched, meaning it respects this person's limitations. Because if you try to push that person too fast, you'll get injured. You'll take 3 steps forward, 4 steps back, right? And that's a very frustrating process that decreases trust in you as the trainer. And that's where you just need to be able to speak to those things. But the fastest way to build trust on the front end of your relationship is by telling them, hey, based upon these things, this is what I see. These are the limitations we're going to probably expose ourselves to along the way. This is how long this might take. What do you think about that, and engaging them in that relationship and helping them be involved in that planning process? And if you do that, they'll be like, oh, you care, you're also competent. And those are two things that are really important in building trust with your clients early on in that first 30 days. You're not going to generate a lot of results in the first 30 days. That's the unfortunate truth. So then how do you continue to nurture that relationship in a way that they know, like, and trust you, with an emphasis on liking you? Because the more they like you, the more likely and the longer the runway that you'll get to actually have more time to deliver that specific result. So all that to say, there's a specific framework that we suggest most trainers need to be able to leverage as they're working with new clients. Number one, you have to conduct the relevant assessments. You have to know what to measure, when to measure it, and how often to remeasure it, right? You're doing that so that way when you design the program, which is the second pillar here, if you can't design a program, you're going to be grabbing at random things all the time. Steve, how many trainers have you seen in your career do random stuff and lose clients because they couldn't get results? I mean, you had multiple trainers working for you. Was that a big problem or
dude,
no?
all the time. I remember we even installed a system on programming in the studios that I owned, and trainers would resist it. And they're like, oh, the client's going to get bored doing the same workout every Monday for the next 6 or so weeks. And I'm like, are we here to entertain them or are we here to get them results? And it's not necessarily a must choose one, but we know that getting results is part of it.
Yeah,
Which one is going to get better results?
100%.
Just just ask the question. And let's ask the client, Do you
Yeah.
want to come in and do random shit all the time, or do you want to more quickly achieve the reason that you're paying $100 a session?
Mm-hmm.
Which one do you want? Because if you want me to entertain you, I'm down. I got
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But when you're paying $130, $140 an hour, you probably want something for it.
Yeah. And I think that you highlight a great point, and that a lot of people think it's dichotomous of you have to pick one or the other. Sometimes you can make it an entertaining experience just by the conversation that you have while you're doing it. It's not necessarily the exercise you have to change, which, by the way, when you have newer people who are the most likely to purchase training, by the way, the more new shit you interject, the less competent, the less practiced, the less skilled they'll actually be at doing that thing. It's like teaching a little kid how to throw a baseball and then moving on to swinging practice and then putting them in a game. Like you literally went through each thing one time. And now they're going to be frustrated because they're not good at it. And that frustration erodes trust. And frustration, by the way, is the number one reason why people quit services is that their expectations aren't being met or their expectations weren't set in a way that they could be met because you didn't conduct the assessment or the trainer didn't conduct the assessment. They didn't take time to understand that person. Because I promise you, if someone has disordered eating history and you're like, hey, we're going to make you count some macros, wildly inappropriate. And you're going to probably send that person down a spiral and they might have some people pleasing tendencies. So they might nod and say, sure, which is why the coaching psychology component is so imperative. And it's our third pillar. You have to be able to do the assessment. What assessment? What are you measuring? What time? How frequently are you reassessing? Second thing, you have to be able to design the program to drive meaningful adaptation. And that might mean that if they're trying to get stronger legs or more toned legs, which we hear a lot in the female population, not a slight, it is the objective reality, right? People want to get more toned legs. You're like, okay, cool. That means we're going to work out legs every day. Well, if you work out legs every day, now all of a sudden connective tissues, knee joints, hip joints, ankles, this stuff might start to actually become an injury risk. And now they're hurt and they can't train for 2 weeks, which means they detrain and they see atrophy. So now, rather than pacing that out, allowing them time to recover, which it does take 24 to 72 hours for new people after exposed to a stimulus to recover from that specific stimulus. This is why we find that upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body, alternating days tends to be a helpful paradigm for most people, right? While the upper body's resting, you work the lower body, then you take a rest day. Upper body again, lower body. That's a 72-hour kind of turnaround in a 4-day training week, which most people probably really shouldn't be training more than 4 to 5 days a week because you just can't put out high effort for more than that. Unless
Speak
you're
for
Steve
yourself, Andrew.
and you can run 11 miles an hour for 30 minutes.
That is,
Guys,
that is
he's a
false.
fucking
I
animal.
cannot do that.
Animal. He did 3 Spartan races in a weekend. Don't let him tell you otherwise. But, all that to say, you got to be able to conduct the assessment. You got to be able to design the program. And that program isn't just reps, sets, exercise selection. You have to have an understanding of biomechanics. You have to have an understanding of the immune systems to know how recovery actually happens. And if you don't have those things, those are learning opportunities that we talk about in Empowered You, right? And then you move beyond that. Those are all the hard skills and tactical skills more than anything of what it means to deliver a training program and to deliver physiological results. But we still need to respect the other person on the other end, which is why psychology and coaching psychology, because you could have the world's best plan, but if the person isn't willing to adhere to that plan and they're not willing to execute the plan, now you're running into a people problem. And that becomes very, very prominent because now if there's no trust, they're not likely to do the buy-in thing, which means they're not going to listen to you. And you're going to get frustrated and they're going to get frustrated and they're going to pick up on that mutual frustration. And that's where you start getting ghosted. And that's where people start no-showing. That's where people start sleeping in. So a lot of the coaching psychology component is how do you get people amped up? How do you get them excited? How do you get them ready and actually enjoying the training experience? How do you give them the bug bite? Or how do you get them bitten by the bug that gets them to want to actually weight train or do the conditioning or do whatever's relevant for the thing that they have to do? Because, by the way, not everyone needs to do cardio, although from a general health perspective, it makes sense. Not everyone needs to lift weights all the time, right? Not everyone needs to count their macros. Not everyone needs to do intermittent fasting. So then how do you know what to implement? And a large component of that is what is the other person's preferences? And how do you then evoke that? And how do you elicit that? And how do you get them to actually bring those things up so you can best support them and do the things that you're great at, which is helping them guide themselves to the appropriate outcome across a longer period of time because they will lose focus. That's why accountability is so important. And I'm sure if you're listening and you're a professional, you've had clients lose the first 3 pounds out of a 50-pound goal, and they're like, okay, I'm good enough. And now you lose that client. Now you have to replace the client. Now it's bad for business, which was one of the reasons why I say good business is good coaching, and good coaching is good business because it takes the things that you have to know, it monetizes a skill set and a competency set that you can then turn around and actually deliver value, and value being giving the person the thing that they're seeking. Right? You could have a PhD in something and no one gives a fuck about the Krebs cycle, but at the same time, they do care about how to lose body fat. And so the value isn't necessarily the education, although the education helps you help them lose body fat. So then obviously we lean into the last pillar. So we've talked about assessment, program design, coaching psychology, right? And you can assess nutrition, you can assess fitness, you can assess strength, you can assess cardiovascular. There's so many different assessments. These are just the bigger umbrellas that these things sit underneath, just to provide that clarity. Assessment, program design, coaching psychology, ethical business building, right? Because you can make a dollar doing anything, right, Steve?
Why are you asking me that one?
I don't know. I just wanted to redirect that real quick,
Got it.
like a pressure pot.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yes.
and we have workshops for that. And in fact, Steve's actually building a very robust 3-day experience that we understand is going to be very helpful for individuals that want that concentrated dose of how do we focus on something, how do we know what to build. And in fact, we even have 1-day experiences where if you wanted to come and hang out with us, we have so much stuff at the end of the day, and we really do try to make it as easy as possible for coaches to have the resources done for you. So we actually have now programs that you can purchase and use directly with your clients. You don't literally have to do anything. You just plug and play them. And so if you're an empowered you, those are included at a substantial discount. But for everyone else, like, we have that stuff as well. If you don't want to be involved in our continuing education, if you want to have a good quality program that's written by someone that has years, decades of experience and advanced degrees and way too many certifications and student debt. So, you know, you can always trust that. And we'll also take your feedback too. So, all that to say, that's pretty much the high notes of what we think is going to be very meaningful. And I shouldn't even say think, what we know to be meaningful as it stands today, based upon, our combined experience, which, I mean, Steve's had so many different locations and so many different trainers that he's seen what's worked, what hasn't worked, and diving into his business passions. And then me just being a coach at the end of the day and a teacher and an educator, like, let us do the work for you. So, all that to say, Steve, what would you like to contribute as we wrap up here on what makes a person likely to be successful in 2025 as a coach?
I'm thinking about that coach right now that isn't where they want to be. You're brand new and you got a road ahead of you. You've been coaching for some years and you're not financially time free, whatever it is. And in 20 minutes, we just broke down, less than 20 minutes, we broke down the 4 big components to being successful. And I know, or at least I feel as though your thought process is something along the lines of, it's not that easy. It is that easy. You just have to show up and consistently do those things at a high level and build enough momentum, and eventually you will get there. Getting clients, yeah, it's an art, it's a skill. Coaching clients, it's an art and a skill. Keeping clients for a long period of time is an art and a skill. And having a successful coaching business is an art and a skill. Being a trainer, going to the gym, and not having to be there 15, 16 hours a day to coach 4 clients is an art and a skill. I've been there. I remember waking up at 4:15 to open the gym for 5 o'clock doors open. And I remember just going like, I'd rather just go nap in the office than drive home because I only have 90 minutes and I have to be back here. And it's like, I look back at those days and you did 5 or 6 sessions over 14, 15 hours. Like, I've been there. Like, it sucked, but it's what allows us to be guides and do this thing. And I opened my first gym. I slept in the office on a whatever it was, cheap folding ottoman from I think IKEA, Monday through Thursday night. So Monday to Friday, I didn't go home. And home, mind you, was like 7-8 minutes away. It wasn't far, but I was so tired that the extra 15 minutes of drive time plus anything that could happen in between wasn't worth it for me, that I would just sleep literally in the office. Now, I never regret that experience. But for a year of my life, I basically didn't do anything else other than work. And I was still broke and poor. Like, so this is coming at you from experience. It is that easy. I know we simplify it. There are key steps in each of those. And when we tell you things like empowered or coming to an event, these are the places where we get to spend time in person, hands on, learning what all of those actual steps underneath that big umbrella are. But listening here, learning, doing some research on the internet. Like you have access if you're listening to us. I know that. So it is that easy. There are things that go along with it. You just have to be consistent and you have to be motivated through those times of like, shit, I got to build that momentum. When momentum starts, like, just keep running with it though. But outside of that, nothing else valuable to add other than a quick, like, hey, you can make it happen. There's 100,000 of you or so out there that are not necessarily where you want to be. Some of you are 2 to 3% maybe, but you know, not everybody's out there making $135,000 a year, and that's what one of our core kind of piece of our mission really is.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I slept in the back of a car for a couple months while I was coaching full time, and I showered at Planet Fitness. And, I had a master's degree at the time, and I was a very well educated coach, but the business acumen wasn't there necessarily to help me understand how to leverage that stuff. And that's where, it's how do you take that skill set and how do you really create value? And we do it because, and that's why Empowered You is so cheap and why our events are so cheap. Like, you won't find things that are comparable from a price to value perspective anywhere, because we truly have a soft spot in helping people that are trying to do meaningful things for their local communities and people that they serve. And you have to be able to, on the back end of that, actually make it a palatable career for you, which means you have to have enough income, and at the same time you also have to have enough time to go and nurture yourself and nourish your own interests. So remember, like, the thing that we always say is you're only stuck if you don't ask for help. And if you're feeling helpless and if you're feeling like you don't know what to do, pull yourself out of that rut. Find a way to pay for an event and come and sit with us in person, and we'll stay there as long as we need to make sure that you get what you need, because that's truly what we're doing this for. And we hope that as we gain our own momentum with helping more and more people at Beyond the Pump under this specific umbrella, we'll have the opportunity to help more people. So it will create the snowball for us. But all that to say, thank you so much for listening. Please like, share. Sharing being the most important thing for us right now. It'd be really helpful to continue to help individuals get access to great quality information. And that's why we always ask you guys to share. So that's the biggest thing you can do to help. We would love to see you at an event. Again, I think it's January 19th and 20th. We're going to be in Dallas. So if you want more information on that, reach out to us on Instagram at official Beyond the Pump. And that's pretty much all we have to share right now. So until next time, thanks, guys.